Good afternoon, everyone. This is Troy Peterson at the EMS agency. Welcome to the ImageTrend Elite end user training. I have everyone set for mute. You can unmute yourself if you have a question or need to speak. You can also put a question up in the chat. There's a Zoom group chat that you can put information in there, whether it's questions or comments. Today I'll be going over the ImageTrend Elite field, and I know this is not the most exciting topic to be talking about today, so I'll try to power through it pretty quickly. It'll take about 70 minutes to go through this. If you do have any questions, you can either hold them for a couple of breaks for the questions, or you can post them to the chat, or go ahead and unmute and ask the question. As we go through this today, you'll probably see some differences in some of the data fields that we're using. Most of the difference is because of the jump from a database called NEMSIS 2 to NEMSIS 3.4. Those are the national databases that we use, and we should have been on it, but we haven't quite gotten the upgrade yet. But now that we're moving over to ImageTrend, we will be upgrading to the most current version. So a lot of the changes really come from moving to this new database. That you'll see is a lot of choices on the drop-down boxes that are different, and some of the fields themselves are a little bit different. All right, with that being said, let's jump into this. On the screen, you'll see the ImageTrend sign-in box. Your username is the same as your ESO username. Password is welcome, all lowercase. And once you enter those and hit sign in, you'll be taken to the Elite. If you do forget your password, you can click on the forgot your password link, and you will be sent a link via your email, the email that we have entered in to ImageTrend. This is a web browser. This is a web-based browser platform. So every time you log in, you will have to hit this privacy statement. Just click yes, and it'll bring you to the home page. The best browser to use for this is Chrome, followed by Firefox and Internet Explorer or Edge. If you're on an iPad, then Safari is your choice there. Obviously, you do need internet access for this. The other part of it that we'll see here in just a little bit does not require internet access. Here on the home page, you'll see some announcements, whether they are posted by ImageTrend or posted by us locally. There might be announcements here. Then looking at what else we have here on the screen, the upper left is the ImageTrend logo. This is the home button. Anytime you need to get back to the home button, regardless of where you are, you can just hit that ImageTrend logo. Moving across is a choice for departments if for some reason you are in multiple departments. A lot of people at Marin County Fire, for example, could also be in RVPA or SMEMS, depending on where they are working, what station they're working out of, what unit they're on. Next two tabs, resources and tools, are for admin use, so they are blank. Next one that you'll find useful is community. Here you will find the help and the university. This will bring up a new tab where you can find a whole bunch of information. There's information here that is directed toward the end user as well as administrators. Just make sure you're looking at the right stuff. You can also click on Learn. There's webinars and videos. The search up here in the upper right is pretty handy if you're looking for something specific. Close that out. Continuing across to the right here, it's an inbox. ImageTrend does have an email system that's internal to ImageTrend. Works like standard email. You can send to pretty much anyone that is in the system. If you do get a ImageTrend message, you will also get a notification in your regular email. It won't have the whole message. It'll just say, check your ImageTrend inbox for a message. Finally, all the way over here on the right, under your username, is a place we can log out. You can bring up a version of Elite in case you're working with support. They want to double check that. And also some account information is available here. This first tab here is demographics. You can make some updates and changes to. The other tabs here are for administrator use. So that's about it. We'll come back when we talk about, get one more tab here, when you're actually in the department. Specifically, there's an incidents tab here as well. And you can view or add, but we'll come back to this a little bit later. So that's the web version. You can create an incident here, create a PCR. But let's jump into Elite Field. You'll probably have a bookmark or an icon on your desktop. This is where you want to be working. This does not require an internet access to work. It will require it to download CAD data. If you do have multiple agencies, you'll be asked to select one. So here in Elite Field, you'll see that over here on the left is a place to add crew and unit. I've already been logged in once, so that retains that. Across the top, you can select all of your incidents if you want to do some bulk movement of those, creating a new incident, just changing your views over here on the right. Down below, this inbox will bring you back to the internal email. If you need to change the way the keyboard works, particularly on the tablets, this is where you can go and do that. Or if you want to force a synchronization of the resources, version number, and a logout under settings. So let's just jump into clicking on a new incident. On this screen over here, you'll see these sections, and we'll run through all these sections in a bit here across the top. Even though it auto-saves and saves every time you jump from field to field, you can do a manual save here. Because we are not on a web version, we will need to post this up to the cloud, up to the server. And we'll talk about that here at the end once we complete a PCR. This first print button brings up an HTML version. It's a real quick, down and dirty version. Obviously, there's not much here to look at yet. And then a full PDF version when you click here. CAD button is where we'll download our CAD information. EKG is the button you'll use to pull in the information. So on your EKG machines, you will do a normal transfer from your monitor via going through the transmit to a particular site, selecting the report, selecting send. Then once you've done that, you'll come here and click on this button and select the case you want to import. Transferring is for transferring from one unit to another, and we'll look at that here toward the end, and then closing. Down here on the right-hand side are some shortcuts, which we'll go through as we actually go through and enter some data on the PCR. Along the bottom, This will be patient name, your current validation score, and you could always click on this to bring up the specifics. We'll talk about that as we go along. And the menu here where you can lock it or add attachments or addendums. And finally, the status of the PCR. So jumping right into entering data, pretty much always going to start from the CAD button. And right now, the CAD is not live, so it's not entering data in except by manual input. So because of that, we just need to clear these dates here. You can also select a unit, click on Go. And then your calls will be here again. When it's alive, we'll have the current calls here. Just clicking on one of these will pull in some data. All right, now that we have information coming in from the CAD, what comes across are the incident numbers, zone, your unit, transport mode to scene, EMD card number, and information here, location, as well as crew information. These are the two crew that are logged in for this, so there's no additional crew members. But anyone that's not logged in will show up there. So the first thing to do here is hit the disposition. In this case, we'll do a transported by this unit. You could add other agencies here. You could always add, if you need to add a specific engine, certainly can there. These also have all the law units and park service and so forth there. Complaint by dispatch, and then hitting these next button takes you across to the other field. Here under crew members, the one limitation to adding a crew member is that it's only within your agency. So if for some reason you need to do another agency, to add another paramedic from another agency that's not listed here, you can add another medic generically here. And there were maybe another caregiver at the scene. Once that is put in place, then it will require the name of the medic here. Here. Person who logged on to the PCR will appear automatically here. Here we have incident address. If you're doing this manually, for some reason, whether the information didn't come across by the CAD or you need to update the information, once you put in the street address, simply put in the zip code here and click on this button. It'll bring in the rest of the information. Some of the information here we do have set for default, and this is the first example here is 911 response type of service request is seen. If for some reason you're doing interfacility, say from Nevada community to Marin General, do be sure to switch that over. Incident location type. This is listed in the most common types that we find here. This is one of the first examples we see where the lists are maybe a little bit different. The NEMSIS lists for here are quite extensive. There are hundreds of different choices. So we've narrowed, this is one case where we've narrowed them down quite a bit. If there's any response delays, they can go in here, whether or not you're the first unit on scene, and number of patients on scene. It will default to single, but you can change it to multiple, in which case you will get some other questions. One of the things that's common to the fields here are these buttons here. This is a drop-down caret. This will indicate a single select, that just one that can be selected here. This one next to it will open up a panel over here on the left that will show you all the choices that are available. And like all of the fields using predictive text, if you push it, start entering in some data here, it will start to filter. Next to this is a negative button. This brings up either the not applicable or not recorded. Depending on the field, it might also have your some pertinent negatives. We'll see that a little bit later. This type of indicator here with the 3 heavy bars is also drop down, but it allows for multiple choices. So you can select multiples on that. So these will be common to all of the fields. The other thing that you'll see is these buttons here. If there's more choices than 6, then you'll get the drop down. But if there's 6 or less, then we'll have the 6 choices displayed. Moving on to the patient information and history tab. The clock icon here will give you the current time, the timestamp. Entering patient name here. Once I leave this field, I get this indication that there may be a repeat patient with the same name. But once I enter and tab out of the field, it goes away because there are no Joe or Jones in the field that are repeat patients. However, if I enter Washington here, I get this alert again that there may be a repeat patient. Clicking on this tab will give me a list of possibilities. In this case, looking at the information here, this is the patient that I want. So I will pull this patient in, and what this does is bring in all sorts of data. It brings in all the demographic information here. Anything that has been previously entered will show up here. Moving over to patient's address. And of course, this has that button where you can pull it in from the incident address. All the history is here. Any notes, allergies will show up, as well as medications. The patient's primary physician will show up here, as well as any advanced directives. Obviously, you want to confirm about the information that you do see here, and you can delete or make any changes to that information as you go through here. Moving on to the assessment and treatment. Here's a first tab for onset of symptoms or last known normal. It has a timestamp here. If you tab into it, you'll get this panel pop up over here on the left. What you can do is set the time in that box to one of these things here. So if you're talking to the patient and they said, you want to know when the last known normal was, and I said, oh, it was just a few hours ago, you can select arrive at patient time and then start taking some time away. You can subtract lots of hours, or you can obviously add some time there as well. So just kind of a shortcut, a quick way to when they say, oh, it's been X number of hours from the time you arrived, then you can quickly subtract some time to get to that. Adding a chief complaint. This is a free text field. You can just quickly add a duration and time units. As we go through this, you'll see that some boxes have some information in there because they are mandatory fields for reporting. for the state. Um, just because they're not showing up as a red mandatory here doesn't mean you shouldn't put any information in there. Obviously, if there's some additional information that helps, then definitely need to put some information in here. Protocol use. These are our protocols. They do have a little prefix to them that helps sort them. Primary impression. And a lot of these primary impressions have been whittled down from 1,000 to what we have here. Predictive type, again, is in effect here. And in this case, if I'm not sure what it is, I want to expand that and look for it. I certainly can find it there. Same thing, primary symptoms. Any barriers to care. Alcohol and drug use indicators. I've got the work-related illness at unknown. Obviously, if it is, do set it to yes. It's particularly important for the billing. So now we get into the treatment and response. These panels here will open up the vitals. In this case, pre-populates with the current time. The crew members can quickly add or change crews. Your GCS running through here is legitimate. Bring you up to score automatically. You can enter a couple different ways. Think about this as you're looking at this, that although I'm sitting on a laptop now, and you may be using laptops to play with this before it goes live, really the best thing to do is use a tablet. And you can see where if you had this panel open and you were to just click on these really quickly with your fingers, it does make data entry a whole lot easier. You get a pulse rate in there, and then it jumps to a respiratory rate. You can either tab, and again, in some cases, once you put some data in, it will jump automatically to the next box. That sucks. From there, you don't have to finish everything. You can just put in whatever you have at the time. Exams, same kind of thing. This goes through all of the exams that we're pretty much used to seeing. Again, some of these lists may be slightly different. So to this one, if you want to add a 12 lead, this is where you do that. Medications, whole medication list right here. Anything that we can do to pre-populate some of these fields, we will. So for example, in aspirin, the route will always be administered to oral, and the dosage units will be in milligrams. And then you just have to fill out the dosage and the response. Come here. Same thing goes for the procedures. If you're all of your procedures listed here. There is another way of entering all of this information, and that's over here on the right-hand side. These are power tools or situational tools. They're basically shortcuts. So for example, on the situation tool, if you have a cardiac arrest, you'll get the choices of the most common things that occur during a cardiac arrest. And all someone has to do is click on these buttons. It will timestamp it. So again, thinking about the tablet in someone's hand that's standing in the room as you are working this arrest, and all they have to do is touch these buttons when a defibrillation was given. airway was put in, IO started, epi on board. And what that does is enters it in. You can always come back here to the timeline then and finish adding the details. But it's a quick and easy way to add the information as it's happening. Now, one attempt, successful. And now that procedure is in here. So you can look at the procedures from this treat and response page, or you can always go back here, up here to the upper right in the timeline. Timeline will always give you everything that is going on, everything you've done with the patients. They are in red because they need some more information. You can fill these out quickly. What do we have here? And this happens is that we have one for chest pain. One of the things that we can do with this program is that we can add more. So if we, sorry, I went out too far. I'll come back into that. If there's other ideas for other situations, then we might be able to add them as well. Let me go back in here and open up the one I was working on. So on these buttons here on the right, these are also shortcuts. So there's, again, many different ways of entering the data. You can just click on this one and either mark not done or normal. Yes, there is a clicking of all normal, and then you can go in and change those. If you need to add some text, right here under the details drop-down, this is a free note, a free text field to enter any additional information. This one will show you again some of the most common choices. When you see these, if there's a more button, it will bring you obviously more of the choices. And basically the difference is just how your workflow is working, how you want to enter the data, whether you're doing it at the time, whether you want to add all the information all at once afterwards when you are sitting at the hospital and doing it if you don't have a tablet, that kind of thing. So again, these shortcuts are really handy. You can just hit them. Anything that we can, again, pre-populate will be done here as well. One thing under the vital signs is a repeat last button up here. So if the vital signs are haven't changed very much, GCS is the same, you can hit repeat last. It'll bring the last ones in here, and then you can just update as you need to. Okay, at this point, I'm going to pause for questions. You can either put the question in the chat session, or you can unmute your microphone and ask the question. Right, hearing none and seeing none, let's continue on.
Hey, Troy, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why are we changing from what we already have?
I'm sorry, I didn't speak up. I didn't quite hear that.
Why are we changing from ESO to this new program?
So the change from ESO to this program is mostly due to the fact that although ESO wasn't completely broken, it wasn't giving us what we really needed on the back end as well as on the front end. But with this program, we have the ability to really customize what we have here up front. There's a lot of customizations gone into this already, and we can change this. One of the things we'll be talking about is getting input from everybody between now and June 5th when we go live. That will allow us to fine-tune this. This is about 90% complete here. There's a couple things I think we can improve on still before we go live, and with the goal, of course, of making it as easy to enter the data as possible. So that's essentially why we're seeing the switch.
Okay, yeah, I would just say that you really need to listen to people in the field, because it really looks like there's a lot of clicking around on this, and maybe once people get used to it, there won't be as much. But that's my perception from watching this.
Yeah, like
through a lot of different boxes.
Yes, there is, and there's a flow that I think once everyone gets used to it, again, particularly on a tablet, which is where this is really designed for optimal use, that should get better. Now, there are things that we can change if we think that the flow, excuse me, the flow of these can be changed, and just moving stuff around over here in the order, that is something we can do. Simple things like sort order of the lists, we have the ability to change those, as well as so one area that is really good, I kind of glossed over here, but let me get back to patient history here. When you're entering these, this NEMSIS list was thousands of choices based on the SNOMED, which is the national list of meds. Basically, the NEMSIS database uses that and ICD-10 codes, which, as you can imagine, don't translate too well for pre-hospital field use. But we have managed to get these down to a slightly more manageable list. We can continue to do this. The other thing that we can do, we have a good example here on the meds, is the predictive typing. We'll filter these. So what we can do is we can add, for example, here under aspirin, we could add another name to it. We can put ASA. So if people are used to putting that in and having aspirin pop up, we can certainly do that. I've started adding some, and I'm looking forward to getting some more input on both medications and history that we can add to help make things go a lot faster. So hypertension, for example, we added HTN here, which makes it a lot easier, and it's a pretty common abbreviation. So again, I think that the real strength of this program in particular, is the ability to customize it. And yes, the field input so far has been good. We've made a lot of changes in the last month or so, and I'm looking forward to getting more field inputs. Can't promise we get everything done exactly like you would want it. We do have we have to have the ability to do good documentation and collect the information we need, but there's always that balance.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Troy.
Yes.
This is Liz and Dan Reese. Under that list where it said abuse, alcohol, and it gave a variety of abuse choices, could we have just ETOH or?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
We can add that. And it'll pick up on any of the text that's in there that's included in it, so we can add or subtract to any of those lists.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on here at the trauma, if there's no trauma, that's the end of it. If you select yes, you will get this additional box that appears where you have to go through and start selecting here. This cause of injury list is extensive, but it's nothing compared to the thousands of choices that we had coming from NEMSIS on this one. So we have done a lot of work here, for example, to get this one down. If there's nothing applicable, we can just select those. For an MVA, some additional data here. Height of fall, yes, it does allow 0 for that ground level fall. If there's cardiac arrest, then we click yes and we get an additional cardiac arrest panel over here. I won't run through all of the fields here. Just turn that off. STEMI, yes, to meet triage criteria, etc. Narrative, this is a free text field, and you can type anything in here. This is one area where I think there's some room for improving our time that we spend doing PCRs. I know that as a medic, we're all taught to write a lot in here, and there's some people who feel strongly that there should be a lot in here. I will remind folks that the policy is that if you have something documented elsewhere in the PCR, it doesn't have to be repeated in the narrative. We usually use the example of that introductory sentence that a lot of PCRs have of medic 99 got dispatch code 3 to shortness of breath call at 123 Main Street. Upon arrival, found a 68-year-old female in the care of medic 99 complaining of shortness of breath. Well, that sentence, it's a bit redundant. We know all that stuff based on what's elsewhere in the PCR. So I put that out there as a reminder of a way that we may want to look at the narratives and think about ways to make the completion of the PCR take not quite as much time. That being said, of course, do what you're comfortable with and also what your agencies want to see in the narratives. I just think that there's sometimes we put a little bit too much in there where we're spending a lot of time doing that.
Troy, thank you for stating that. And this is Liz Frauenberger. And for the opposite view of using a good narrative, if anybody wants to talk to me offline, I'd be happy to share with you what I just learned from one of the top EMS legal companies in the nation. Bye.
Thanks, Liz. Moving on to our transport. If there's any scene delays, they can be here. You do need to add a hospital contact. These are the 6 hospital contacts we normally see. If for some reason you was asking for it, but it's not applicable, you can always select that box as well. Transport mode from the scene. Final patient acuity. Any delays here. Destination. Reason for choosing it. Type of destination is already defaulted. If for some reason it's other, do change that. The hospitals are listed here in the order of the most commonly transported to, and it will fill in all the information in here. I did open up a new PCR, and let me go back here real fast. I'm going to put transported by this so we can see some of the fields that are required. So these two fields here, arrived at destination and transfer of patient care, are very important fields to put times in that are accurate. Arrived at destination, this is wheels stop at the hospital, and the destination patient transfer of care. You can just click this button here, it'll put another timestamp in here. This is when the patient is off the gurney and report has been given. This is an important time because the difference between these are what we calculate with what's called ambulance patient offload time. Now here in Marin, we don't have much of a problem with that. We have some pretty good times, but elsewhere there are people who are experiencing 15, 20, 30, even 40-minute offload times. And so the state's taking a hard look at this, and it's one of the areas we have to report. So it's very important to get this accurate now before we have a problem. That way, if it ever changes, we'll have a baseline to compare it to. So again, these two times here are important to get accurate as possible. And it is required to fill out the receiving, accepting physician at the ED. One of the things that's really nice with the tablets is the ability to obtain signatures electronically. When you come in here and you can select what kind of patient signature you want to add, whether it's release, refusals, and patients can sign here. If you need to enlarge it on your tablet, you can. The other thing is the signatures here, if it's signed or not signed, so they don't have to go into the narrative anymore. Timestamp, it'll pull the patient name when that's filled out here. There's a big push to go paperless on this, so I know the folks that are moving to the iPads, the chiefs really want to just go as paperless as possible. Obviously, if the patient wants a copy of that, you still have to carry a paper copy to hand to them, but the actual signature and the paperwork will follow this along. Now you can add pictures of things, particularly if you were to take a picture of a face sheet, for example. I know San Rafael Fire has been doing this more and more with some success. Just simply click on Add New, and then the type of document it is, and you can take a photo. My laptop is closed, so it's obviously black, but it will be there. The information that is here does not go to the device. It only stays within the PCR program itself, so there's no patient information that gets stored on the device. All these photos, again, come directly into here and do not get stored on the device. Once a call is complete, your validation score hopefully is 100. Again, that's the goal here. Because we're not on the web, we want to post this. Clicking on post. And instead of having to change the status to finalize and lock it and post it, just simply clicking this to say, yes, I want to mark it as finished, and posting it. We'll post it, we'll mark it as finished, and lock it, post it, change the status to finalized. You can also not do that and just post it without finalizing it. So for example, if you need to hand the tablet to an oncoming crew, you can go back to the station and finish that PCR. Closing incident, again, one button click will close everything down. You can always get back into the incident by clicking on this arrow. Will take you back in there. Now I'm going to jump back over to ImageTrend Elite on the web. And over here on the Incidents tab, again, you can create new PCRs directly from CAD, or as you saw how we did it in Elite Field. You could also come over here and view existing calls. So if you're looking for a call that you need to complete, or for some other reason to look for, this is where you come and look for it. Again, this filter here for unit notified date is the main primary filter. There are a couple other filters you can use to search for this. We can go, we'll bring it up. What you see here is a list of all of your calls, the status, validity scores, and so forth. Over here on the right, clicking here will be the attachments. These are the attachments that are either attached to it or gives you the ability to add attachments to it like you just saw. The messages opens up the messages communication that is specific to this incident. So if there is a message here, perhaps from the CQI coordinator, or if you want to send something here, it automatically puts the crew in here. Clicking this next history report button brings up the history of what's happened to this call. Basically, this is not a report to show everything that has happened when it's been opened, viewed, who did it, and so forth. And finally, a print button here. This arrow will bring you back into the current tab and bring you back into the incident. Okay, I want to show you open up another incident here. I'm going to download something from CAD. Okay, once CAD's live, you'll see all the live information here, right here in front. I'm going to download this. And in this case, what I'm going to do is select a call canceled. As you know, we do need to do PCR for every EM that's issued. So here is how a call canceled goes. I select that. Because I was logged in, my information's come over to the crew information, come up here to times, click one button, and we're done. It gives me a validation score of 100. So once we're logged in here, just about 2 or 3 clicks will complete a call canceled, and then post that up. Now, pretty quick and easy on that. All right, I'll pause for any questions. We're just about complete here. Any questions or comments? You can either put them in the chat or unmute and ask a question.
Hey, Troy, quick question. This is Mark with NorCal. Are we able to send to the hospitals a fax direct from the ImageTrend, or does it need to be handled paper?
It's not set up for faxing. I'm going to look into that. That might be something we add on to here, but at the time we don't fax to the hospitals.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, seeing no other questions and hearing no other questions, I'll call this training good and complete. Please do get in there and enter some PCRs. I'm looking forward to getting some feedback on anything we can tune up. Do send me an email or you can give me a call, and we'll see what we can do, again, to really get this streamlined as possible. Between now and June 5th, which is when we are going live, you can put in as many PCRs as possible. We'll clear it out prior to going live. If any other questions come up afterwards, feel free to give me a call or send me an email. Thanks, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.